when you work on something for a really long time, you start to realize some truths about the creative process. And I think that our conversation about creativity blends into this really seamlessly. So I think that what we're looking at right here is basically 4 different panels, right? The first panel, as you've seen like storyboard images, right? So this is actually just after a storyboard image because we've got this kind of temporary image of Ebert in there. But then you move over to something called the layout, and that's in a gray frame. So basically layouts are where we do blocking. It's basically where we start to talk about movement and the specificities of movement and where the character is going within the scene that you're trying to create. And then after that, you're going to notice that the last 2 frames get really, really close. They look very similar. So the one on the bottom left is a fully composited frame. So when you fully light and texture something, that's usually what it comes out looking like. You've done full texture and color and all this stuff, and it's looking really good. And then if you notice the bottom right frame, it looks basically the same with a slight difference, and that's basically the shading on the eyes. If you guys notice, the shading on the eyes is almost like it's like minute, but which frame looks more finished? I think that the point that I'm trying to make with something like this, which you've always seen, oh, here's a before and after, but when you start getting really far down the line, the changes that you make become really, really small. And I think that the best movies in the world, I think that the best animated movies, especially in the world, spent a lot of time on those the last 2%, right? Which is like these small details that you tend to see. Like for us, we were looking at these eyes for like a couple months on the bottom left, and we're like, fuck, something doesn't feel right. Maybe we can key in some sort of shade or something, and it was just part of the conversation. And finally we did it, and all of a sudden the frame completed itself. So I wanted to share that as just kind of a really interesting way to look at the evolution of what we're seeing. Everything that we've been working on, this last month, 2 months, has been this last 2%. These little changes that make it's the last 2% and the last 2% of changes that make 98% of the difference. So I'm hoping that this offers a little bit of a fresh perspective for people. When we do color grading, when I do color grading specifically, especially on animated content, I want it to look like it was shot on film, 35 millimeter film to be exact. So what we do is we have a lot of software that we can use to actually emulate what the look of something that's shot on 35 mil would look like. So straight out of the box, straight out of Blender, this is basically what we're looking at. We're looking at this frame of Ebert, and it looks good. I'm like, fuck, this looks great. This looks really good. But when we change it and we actually make it less perfect, let's just see what happens. It starts to look real. So obviously, Rain, you're not seeing it, but you will in about 15 seconds. But basically,
I'm waiting. On edge of my fucking seat.
We got to figure out the fucking delay. But basically,
it's okay.
It starts to look real, and I think that there's this thing that film emulation does where it starts to add damage into the frame. It adds all different sorts of imperfections and grain and just stuff that it just makes it look like it was actually shot, like there was actually a person there shooting it on a camera. And we're trying to move and create some of these imperfections in the stuff that we make to make it look more real. So I had one other example, but we're going to skip that, and we'll probably leave off on this frame for the day because I think it's a good little little secret about what we're doing. If you guys are all making animated content out there, try some film emulation, try dehancer, try throwing a grain on what you're making to make it look like you can reach out and touch it. I think that it will set your images apart from everything else that's being made right now, which looks super perfect and super, tactile accurate to exactly what's getting pumped out of the computer. So make it dirty. And I think that's, a lot of the stuff that I've worked on, I just try to dirty it up. And animation is no exclusion to that rule.